Going on, everyone? Jeremy Ritz here. Courage pays better than fear trading. And it's not a Sunday setup, it's a Monday setup. We are closed today in honor of MLK Day. And we're going to jump in and get you set up for the 4 days of trading that we have here in January, starting with the day, the 20th, tomorrow, that's Tuesday, when the markets will open. And we have a little bit of controversy out there that's pressuring markets to the downside. That's where we're going to start. We're going to look at the data. We're going to look at the earnings. We're going to look at the charts and get you set up so that you have a phenomenal week ahead. Let's go.
Crocodile smile, we're burning down with the fix.
All right, so let's jump in here. So the U.S. futures slide on Trump tariff threat. We haven't had a tariff threat in a long time, so what better time than now? But you can see here, U.S. stock futures fell on Monday after President Donald Trump threatened new tariffs on 8 European countries to force the complete and total purchase of Greenland. The proposed measures target Germany, the UK, France, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, the Netherlands, and Finland, with a 10% tariff set to take effect on February 1st and rise to 25% in June unless an agreement is reached. European leaders are weighing a halt to approvals of last year's trade agreement, while French President Emmanuel Macron may reportedly seek activation of the EU's anti-coercion instrument. Dow futures slid 0.6%, S&P futures dropped 0.7%, and NASDAQ 100 futures fell 1%. So we could see that we're going to open with some pressure downward on the markets. And it's been a hot minute since Trump threatened tariffs. So you'd have to go back to October, whenever he threatened new tariffs on China that caused a massive sell-off in the markets. It caused that massive drop on Bitcoin where a lot of leveraged positions were smoked out. And so we'll see what's going to happen as a result of this week. But let's take a look at the data. So taking a look at the data this week, we could see here on the 20th, which is tomorrow, at 8:15, we are going to get the ADP employment change weekly. Again, more insight into the labor market, which the Fed is very much focused on right now. And also, too, it is reported that the Supreme Court will release an opinion on tariffs tomorrow. I can't find anything official on that. The ruling is not supposed to be out until June, so just stay tuned to hear what comes from that. When we hop over to Wednesday, nothing I'm really watching here on the 21st, but it's Thursday where we're really going to get some significant data coming in because we are going to get GDP. We are also going to get PCE, and those are going to be massive movers in the market in terms of the data. So we have to be ready for that. And we are also going to be getting personal income, personal spending, and these data points will move the market. So Thursday, be ready for that. It's going to have significance. And then on Friday, really nothing spectacular that's going to provide a lot of movement, but I am interested to see what the S&P Global Composite PMI flashes, manufacturing PMI, services PMI. These are going to be interesting takes. These will drop at 9:45 a.m. And then we'll also get Michigan Consumer Sentiment Final at 10. But really, Thursday is the big day in terms of data this week. In terms of earnings this week, we don't have anything today. Obviously, the markets are closed, but Tuesday is a big day. And I'm really excited here because we get Netflix going to report, and we'll take a look at that chart here in a minute. But I'm really excited about this report. The last 2 times that they have shared their earnings, they did move lower. So this is going to be an interesting one to see what the corresponding move is from this. And I'm excited for it. That will come at market close. I'm also interested to see what Interactive Brokers reports, just to see how other brokerage firms are going to report. And that will have an impact on Hood, Bull, Coinbase. So there could be a sympathy play here. So very much interested in what they're going to share. IBKR, again, that'll be Tuesday at close. And then really just proceeding through the rest of the week, there's not much else that I really want to watch. We are going to get Intel reporting on Thursday at close, ticker symbol INTC. So I'll be interested to see what that is. But outside of that, there's really not a lot that I'm interested in here this week outside of Netflix in terms of earnings. And it's next week when we're really going to get the big boys starting to report. And that is going to be exciting. That could cause that push up to 7,000. But let's jump into the charts and see where we are and see what is going to be on tap tomorrow. Are we going to get a massive gap down as a result of this tariff information? Let's hop in and check
Here
it
we
out.
go.
Let's start with futures. Let's just take a look at this move that has happened, this big old gap down that we got. And I'm going to drill into this on the 3-minute so you could see this a lot better from where we are right now. But you could see here yesterday when futures opened at 6, bang, big old drop down, recovered off of those lows, but then it was just a slow grind down into the wee hours of the morning. And then around 3:42 a.m. is when you started to see this next leg lower and found a little bit of a bounce. It's finding a little bit of buying right now, but this does not look good. The futures are down 63.5 points at the time that I am recording this, and this can come lower depending on what happens in these remaining hours before the end of the day. And we'll get a new round of futures that will kick off at 6 o'clock Eastern this evening. So we'll see. But if we just come over here to the daily chart on the futures, you can see that it did get bought up at its lows. So you do see that there was support here, buying pressure. But take note that we have the 50 EMA right here on the daily, and that is around 6877.82. And you also have the 50 SMA at 6862.77. So these would be the two areas of support that you want to watch to see a bounce come in. But also keep in mind too, if we're just looking at structure, this was the most recent low that we had right here at, let's just measure this out, 6865.50. So if it does want to come down and test this, that has to be a bouncing spot. The bulls have to come in there. That's going to be right around that 50 and push it back up, because if that breaks, if that low breaks, then we're going to create a new lower low, and then potentially there could be downwards pressure on this thing to the 100. So what does that mean? What it means is that on the SPX, we are going to open lower than where we closed on Friday at 69.40. It's just going to depend how much. And we have seen big drops like this before that have been bought up pretty significantly. And there is a chance, because of the taco trade that you've heard about when it comes to tariffs, that there's never really truly been any follow through, that this dip could get bought pretty quickly and pretty swiftly. So we have to see what's going to transpire tomorrow. More than likely what it will be, because what we've seen in the past, it will gap down, but then we'll probably see a bounce off of those lows. And so just be prepared for that. This isn't the first time the market has seen tariff threats, and every time that we have, there's been buyers that came in from that. Just really quickly, this candle right here on October 10th, this big, massive bearish engulfing candle, this was the last time that there was any type of a tariff threat, and this was the tariff threat on China. You could see what happened, but after that, on Monday, gapped up, dropped back down on Tuesday, got pushed back up, and then it just climbed higher into new all-time highs. So the takeaway, again, the tariffs, just based on prior history, typically don't stick. So I expect any type of a dip will get bought up, unless we get some serious exacerbation of what is happening, meaning things get worse and they don't get better. There's intensified rhetoric from Trump, from these countries who are bumping heads with Trump. And so we'll have to see, but expect a gap down tomorrow. Taking a look at the Qs, we can see that we are making lower highs, higher lows. The price is coming to a point. It did fill that gap that was created back on November 3rd. But what happened when it filled that gap? It got rejected. In order for the SPX to hit 7,000, the Qs have to rip. But we're going to see a gap down here. It's more than likely going to come below the 50. Let's see if it wants to come down and touch that 100 before pushing up. Bitcoin dropped on the news as well, and we could see it got down to a low of $91,973.52. Buyers did step in. We are below the 10-day exponential moving average, but this still looks like a little bit of a bull flag to me. We got rejected off of that 100-day simple moving average, and I would not be surprised whatsoever to see this thing continue back to the upside. And take a look at the volume that came in here. That is strong volume on that push up, which says to me that there's interest in this move. So I don't think it's over. And again, you guys have heard me say the market always needs something to worry about. It has clinical anxiety. It's a soap opera, right? The place that you need to get in the markets and your trading and your investing, where it's just, okay, I could be objective when I interpret this information and not freak out. Oh my gosh, we're going to zero. It's just like, all right, this is information. How do I manage it? How do I use it to my advantage in trades? And what does it inform about my practice with my investments? So that's how we have to look at it. Let everybody else panic and freak out, or like all the YouTube videos with the, oh, it's over, like with the big explosions behind. It's all nonsense. This is just all information for us to be prepared and know the best way to approach this. Coming over to take a look at the Dow Jones Industrial. Again, we did hit a new all-time high last Monday. Really, it's just been hanging out above that 10. This has more room to the upside. I have this upper trend line resistance where it hits and gets rejected. We're going to see this thing gap down again, or excuse me, we'll see this thing gap down tomorrow, but I think we're going to touch this one more time before we get a true correction. But the Dow Jones has definitely been showing a lot of strength, and the IWM continues to push nearly tweezer tops here. We have an indecision candle, spinning top candle. So let's see if this is going to be a reversal. Again, we are going to see a drop lower. Let's see if it wants to come down to this 10 at 260.47. Let's see if buyers come in there, or if it comes down even lower, maybe it'll hit that 20 at 256.80 before it gets buyers and starts to push back up. Taking a look at TLT, the head and shoulders pattern that we've talked about for quite some time is still in effect. It went up, retested the neckline here, got rejected off the 50. Looks like it's going to come back down. And as people are selling bonds, what does that do? It increases the yield to make them more attractive to investors. And what did we see on the 10-year here on Friday? It spiked and it got rejected off the 200. Would not be surprised to see this thing break above it tomorrow. But the 10-year is on the rise. The dollar, we have a head and shoulders pattern here. Boom, boom. And we had a bearish engulfing candle that came in on Friday. Let's see if this wants to drop a little bit lower, especially with all the tension that has come into focus here from Trump's new tariffs. And then we take a look at the VIX. Get ready for the mighty VIX to lift off here tomorrow. It will spike, and we could see that it was above the 100 and the 50 on Wednesday, January 14th. More than likely, it's going to gap up above that because the volatility spikes when there's uncertainty around tariffs. There's lots of fear there, so that more than likely is going to happen. And then take a look at gold. What a beast, right? These are gold futures. It just continues to push up. It makes all-time highs. It's like Chris Carter back in the day, wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. All he did was catch touchdown passes. All his gold does, it just goes up and makes new all-time highs. What else can you say about gold? A little bit overbought here on the RSI, but you could see it could go much higher before it pulls back. And I expect this to climb a little bit more, especially if this tariff nonsense continues into the rest of the week. So let's go take a look at the MAG 9, and we're going to take a look at Tesla first here. So after that big rip that it had up to nearly $500, dropped down, found support off the 100, pushed up, rejected off the 20. Now we are back down below the 10 and the 50. I want to see if this wants to come back down here and test that 100. If it does, I'll look for a short-term bounce on a day trade there on Tesla. Taking a look at Broadcom, notice how we are arranging right here. There's interest in the price down here at that what would that be? 323.48 area. You could see that the buyers step in every time. We do have a gap below us to fill here at 308.36, and we have a gap above at 395.17. And if we just look at where we are right now, we did close above the 100 on Friday, but we have the 50 EMA above us and the 50 SMA. So it has to break both of those in order for it to climb. It has been stuck in this downtrend. It's been moving sideways since it gapped down on earnings. Probably going to be range bound for a little bit longer, and it's probably coming lower again off of the tariff news. Netflix is reporting on Tuesday. Yay, I can't wait. And one thing that I noticed when I was doing my chart study this weekend, is notice how as that price is falling, we can see that the volume is declining, right? We had this big spike here whenever it first gapped down on earnings, and the bearish volume has decreased. So could this drop be losing steam? Potentially it can. I'm really excited to see how they report tomorrow. It will be after close. I would not be surprised at all to see this thing gap up to potentially $100 into the 50-day simple moving average, and then we'll see what it does from there. But I also wouldn't be surprised to see it come down a little lower. That is not off the table, but it has been stuck in this downtrend if we measure this out since June 30th is when it really started, for about 200 days. So for 200 days, it's in lagging. So let's see if it wants to get a bid here off of earnings. It is oversold. Be prepared for Netflix. This thing can push the market if it has positive report. And then we have Microsoft, this beautiful double top that came into play here. Bang, dropped down, found support off the 200. Bang, came back down, found support, popped back up. Bang, found a little bit of support, dropped a little lower, but it couldn't hold on, and down it comes. And it is about to fill this gap below at 453.74. It's really hard to see, but here it is. And there is a gap lower at 396.85 that it could come down and fill. This is from all the tariff noise from April. Things would be really bad for it to come down here. But keep in mind that they are going to be reporting earnings on the 28th of January. So that one is coming up. Amazon pushing, trying. It got up to 249 and change, but couldn't hold the price. So we have made a lower high here. You can see the all-time high came in back on November 4th. And let's see if this thing wants to take another shot. You're going to need to see a Google chill out, calm down a little bit. And notice it got close to being overbought, but it didn't get overbought, but that was enough for sellers to come in and push us back down. We are now down below the 10-day exponential moving average. You do have quite a bit of support here on the VRVP, but for now, this just looks range bound and sideways. So just keeping an eye on that. Apple, beautiful head and shoulders pattern. Bang, 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 dropped, found a little bit of support, clustered on the 100, but fell through it here on Friday. And we do have a gap to fill at 253.38. If it comes down below that, you have another gap at 234.56. So let's see if Apple wants to start giving some of this back. This is a textbook head and shoulders pattern that is playing out. And then we take a look at Google. All Google does is push up, retest, push up, retest, push up, retest, push up, retest. And are we going to push up again? We'll find out tomorrow. But again, everything's probably going to move a little bit lower off of the tariff. And then there's Meta, just doing a whole lot of nothing. So here's our all-time high, lower high, lower high, lower high. Are we going to make another lower high? It can't sustain anything. It tried to pierce the 100 here back on Friday, December 12th. Couldn't do it. You do have a lower low, higher low, double bottom that came into play. But notice we are below all the major moving averages. We have to fight through the 50, the 200, the 100. But if it could get above the 670 area and these volume nodes on the VRVP, it does have room where it could push. But this thing just continues to get pummeled, and the chart looks pretty terrible. I'm not going to lie. So we'll see what happens there. And NVIDIA, again, to me, this just looks range bound for the longest time. Sure, we had that breakout here in November, but boom, ping pong. Yep. Not a whole lot exciting there. You had that big gap up that it had off of its last earnings, and then it sold down. That sparked off a mini dip across the markets. Let's see what happens when they report earnings in February. I think it's the 25th. So we'll see what happens there. But for right now, just looks pretty choppy. And really, the Qs, big tech has been paused. It has been chilling. It hasn't done much of anything. If the SPX is going to hit 7,000, the Qs have to get going. They're going to have to push. And then the 5 that I am watching this week here to see if there is a potential play. I am watching Roku. Roku got that close above 108 that I was looking for. I do think this thing has room up to 140. But notice it have a double top pattern here. Lower high, higher high, double top. I want to see if we can come down and test this 100, maybe poke our head below it, and I will look to see if I can catch a day trade here. So that is what I'm watching on Roku. I think there could be an opportunity there. And then Boeing, I talked about this last week in the episode of Driven. I didn't have a Sunday setup, but look, it closed above the 100-day monthly moving average, simple moving average for the first time. You'd have to go back to 2023. All right. So this is a pretty big moment. Now, when it closed above it the last time, it got dropped pretty hard. But I think there could be an opportunity for this thing to push. You do have thin volume up here to about 310. So I am going to be watching Boeing for some potential day trades here. So that is on my list. Tesla, I already talked about this, coming down to retest that 100. That's where I'll be looking for some opportunities. And then Robinhood, here's another one. We have been making lower highs. And there is this little bit of a trend line that came into play here back on August 1st, where this is higher lows that have been being made, and we're getting pressured into a point, almost like a falling wedge. So I might start grabbing some shares here, and potentially if we can come down to that 200, maybe taking a quick bounce off of that. So I am going to be watching Robinhood, and that's why I'm interested to see how IBKR reports this week as well. And then MSTR, I'm going to continue to watch this because of the upside potential here. The chart looks a little bit better than it did last week, but you could see when it pushed and it went above that 50, it couldn't hold it, didn't sustain, got knocked right back down, followed by a bearish engulfing candle, dropped down to the 10, buyers came in. Let's see how this thing wants to report. But if it can get a nice close above this 50, you have room up to that 100 at 248.36. So I'm going to keep watching that as well. And my last one, Palantir. I'm watching this one short. We have this nice little trend line here that we broke below on Friday with a bearish engulfing candle on good volume. I'm going to look for some short opportunities, probably look for something like this, a little bit of a drop, retest, and then try to catch it rolling over down into the 200. They are going to be reporting earnings on February 2nd. So that is what I have for you guys here on the charts. So let me know, what are your thoughts about this week in the market? How are these new tariffs going to impact the stock market? Are we heading lower? Is this going to kick off that correction? Keep in mind, big boy earnings are coming. I don't think tariffs are going to be enough to derail stellar earnings from mega cap tech, especially when we've heard threats of tariffs several times before, only to not be followed through with. So we still have to wait and see and play it out. As always, be safe, be cautious, be disciplined, follow your plan in your trades. Never trade more than you can lose. And if I can help you with anything, reach out, let me know. Don't forget, we have the blueprint starting tomorrow. Excited for everybody who signed up for that. There is still a little bit of time to sign up. Just reach out to me, couragepaysbetter@gmail. Would love to have you on board. Year-long mentorship. We're going to learn a ton together. And with that said, in the meantime, in between time, make it a great day. Honor the moment. And as always, be grateful. Have a tremendous week, everyone.